And that's where you'll find the gold buried underneath that tree. Anyway, so why are we dealing with this topic of when is IT obsolete? Part of the challenge that we found from Simplex-IT, and most of you guys know about us and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Yep. Let's get to the right. We do all those things in the PowerPoint slide. Isn't it wonderful? Yes, we are all wonderful. We're fantastic. Yay, hire us soon. Okay, fine. But one of the challenges that we're finding is we're finding a lot of companies, and especially in Northeast Ohio, we're finding a lot of manufacturing companies that are being hit with the dilemma of, boy, our stuff is really old, and we need to update that. But we're not sure if we can afford it, and we're not sure how, and we're not sure really what the benefit's going to be. And it's a tough question. And so we're being brought into that discussion, and we're happy to. And unfortunately, if anyone's looking for a simple answer, it ain't there. Okay? And even your hard dollar ROI cost analysis, that isn't going to work entirely because there's a whole bunch of pieces, parts that go into this. And first of all, you have to start with what is obsolete. And it's no longer used. Okay, that's pretty obvious. It's out of date and it can't perform the necessarily task. But then we're also hit with this last one, which is kind of, oh gosh, isn't this funny? But it's actually very serious. Is right now, the consultant's selling you something. So whatever the consultant's selling you, that's not obsolete, and whatever you have is obsolete. So they're coming in here and saying, you need the latest and greatest. Why do you need the latest and greatest? Because if you don't, then I don't sell you anything and I don't make any money. So sometimes it's very hard to get an honest, straightforward discussion of where are the benefits, where are the pros and cons. And it's an interesting discussion. So we're going to take a test case here. And we're going to just talk about a manufacturing company, and they have a line of business application. So this is critical. If this application or something like it isn't running, they're out of business. And it's from 2003. So it's 7 years old. It's probably based on Server 2003 as the application server, SQL 2000, or it could even be an old mainframe app. Okay, it could be an AS400 box. It could be whatever. We have 40 XP boxes running Office 2003. We have, okay, they've also bought a bunch of machines since then. They've got some Vista boxes. They've got some boxes running 2007. They actually got one box running Office 2010. Yeah, that one guy bought it. Oh, great, now we got to deal with it. So what we have is we have a very decentralized setup. If you're looking to support this, then what that means is that you're going to be supporting these folks running Office 2003 different than 2007, different than 2010. And we can mix it up even further. We could have some XP boxes running 2007. We could have a Windows 7 box running 2003. Oh, and by the way, about halfway through we stopped buying Dells and we bought Gateways for a while, and then we bought the Dells again, and then we bought HP. Oh, and then we started hanging out around, we got some Equus machines, and then we really don't know what those three over there are in accounts receivable, but they work pretty much okay. And we've got machines with 20 gig drives, with 100 gig drives. We've got machines that are running, AVG. We've got machines that have iTunes in them. We've got machines that have, Yahoo Instant Messenger 1.0 on them. We've got all of these things because it's been a geological dig. And one of the biggest challenges that throughout, from let's say 2003 as a startup point, the centralized management tools were not there. So whoever was supporting IT through 2003, through no fault of their own, had to give local admin rights as often as not, so end users can install whatever they wanted to. Weatherbug, yay! Okay? And so there's no continuity, there's no similarity. Okay? And they've also got Exchange 2003 for email. Okay? And we've actually even run into a couple instances with Exchange 2000 and, yes, Exchange 5.5. And then they're using it to take backups. So pretty straightforward, okay? Yep. Now, we've really seen two very differing views of what obsolescence is. And one of the first things you have to do is you have to accept what the corporate culture is from that standpoint. And there truly is, from a geek, and I actually heard this from somebody about 15, 20 years ago, and it's still true today, the definition of obsolescence is, does it work? If it works, it's obsolete. Okay? Whereas if we talk to some manufacturing people, and they literally say, does it draw current? If it draws current, why should we replace it? We literally have, especially when you start looking at the shop floor, and the shop floor interacts with saws or with whatever machines, those puppies are running Windows 95 or DOS or whatever, and it works. So, yeah, we got current. So, first of all, when we take a look at the old stuff, as far as a comparison standpoint, you already own, and this is one where we get stuck on. Not necessarily badly, but we get stuck on. We already own it. The capital expenditure has happened. It's been depreciated, yeah, but we own it. We don't have to buy anything. There's nobody writing big checks. Because we own those Pentium 2s with half a gig of RAM and 20 gig hard drive. We own Office 2003. Windows XP. And we're going to install Service Pack 3 real soon as we can clear up some space. And then this is critical. These two, there's no learning curve. People already know how to make things work, including the workarounds. This program works fine, just don't open this one and that one at the same time. Okay, because if you open Outlook, I have so much stuff in my Outlook, it is a huge memory hog. So close Outlook, then open the live meeting client, and then do the connection. Because if you have Outlook and that, it's not going to work. Or, getting back to the vertical application, yes, we started selling. Remember, we have a line of business application from 2003. Yes, we started selling the new product line in 2006. The new product line really doesn't work because it's a custom made to order. Whereas in 2003, it was pretty much a fixed manufacturing. But that's okay because Ralph put together an Excel worksheet that will figure out how to do it in inventory. Okay, now Ralph left us 4 years ago. But I think Susan in ordering has his phone number. He doesn't answer it, but if we leave enough messages. So the workarounds are well known. We know how to make it work. Old stuff. What are the costs? No new tools. What do I mean by that? And here's a really challenging one because I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit because I can. When we talk about new stuff, one of the biggest things that especially Microsoft looks for whenever they come out with something new is they're always on the lookout for that killer app. The killer app that companies, people, whatever, can't live without. They absolutely have to have it because it does this, and you can't do that on the old stuff. And one of the biggest problems Microsoft has faced is there really aren't any killer apps that require Windows 7, that require Vista, that require Office 2010. Because most of the killer apps are thin. They're web-based. Right now, the kind of killer apps we're seeing today are Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and those don't require anything installed on your computer except for a browser. What's that? Yeah, they run fine on Linux, Macs, any of those sort of things. So or they run fine on an XP box that was purchased back in 2003 with cows. The box, not a real, well, maybe. Anyway, but there is a much tighter, much stronger integration with those tools. And I'm going to take a real quick show of how some of the things that you can do. So what you can actually do is you can take advantage, and in Office 2010, there's a couple of cool things that you can do as far as integrating Facebook, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. There's also, in terms of how we deal with customers, and we're going to get to this in a little bit, how we deal with customers and end users has changed a lot since 2003. And you can't do that with the old stuff. The other issue, more and more workarounds. Every time we change, this is especially true on the vertical app, but also in terms of if we change the way that we do business. The older software requires us to come up with more workarounds. And we just build onto it. And it's this never-ending issue. So we have this Excel sheet that Ralph, or whatever his name was, did, but that now doesn't work for the new product. So now we've got this other worksheet that needs to be done in order for the first worksheet to work. Spare parts, especially true in the server world. Now there's ways around that. But one of the big challenges we have now is that as servers age, the manufacturers no longer have to build the pieces parts to replace them. There's usually about a 3 to 5 year period after the 3-year traditional maintenance contract. And in terms of renewing maintenance contracts, the maintenance contract for servers skyrocket after about 4 or 5 years. Now people don't really understand or see that because it's an annual expense. But it definitely happens. And then more with less. One of the biggest challenges from any IT's perspective has been how to do more with less. And we can look at that in two perspectives. We can look at it from an IT support perspective. A network admin is expected to manage and support more servers than he or she used to. They are supposed to manage more workstations than they used to. Now, thankfully, the tools are absolutely there to do that. And we'll do a couple real quick demos of that. So we can manage more than less, but not with the old stuff. And why is that? Because remember I was saying earlier that the old configurations are all over the place. They're scattered. With that 40 workstation scenario, we have 40 completely different configurations for no particularly good reason. Okay? Slower. Whoa. My XP runs absolutely fine relative to Windows 7, relative to Vista. And in many cases, the answer is going to be absolutely it does. No one is making the claim that an XP box that is running one application is going to be slower than a similarly powered Windows 7 box or Vista box running one application. But when you start adding pieces, parts onto it, as far as multiple functions, multiple programs, multiple windows, the XP starts falling down. And this is especially true if that box has just been accumulating all of this stuff over the last several years. Okay? Higher maintenance contracts. Your contract costs are going to go up. Now, when I say that, you've got the hardware contracts, the cost that you're paying Dell or HP or whomever to actually maintain the devices in terms of the hardware, because the replacement parts are going to be tougher to find. But then in addition to that, ultimately, you're also going to pay higher in terms of support costs because they're not going to be able to provide the support for the older tools because it's going to become tougher and tougher. By the way, any questions or anything, I don't want to hear them. No, I will. Come on. How many of you, is this your first Lunchinar? Okay, so you're not used to how obnoxious I am. Yeah. So it's going to be your last Lunchinar, isn't it? Okay. Okay, now bear with me. That is the end of the first part. We can only do these in 15-minute blocks. We are putting together the second and third part. Those will be up at the same spots, either our blog or up on YouTube soon enough. And then you'll enjoy them about as much as we've enjoyed them. Hopefully a little more.